Yep, we'll be live in a second.
There it is.
All right. We are live. Did you guys actually, while we're waiting for people to log on here, did you actually watch any of the inauguration coverage?
A little bit.
I didn't watch it live. I was actually getting my first dose of the vaccine at noon.
Ah,
And so when I came home, I watched some of the recording, watched the speech and some of the news.
Art's been vaccinated.
That I have.
Was that your initial shot? First one?
The first shot today, yeah.
Okay. All right. Good for you.
And how do you feel? Your arm
I
hasn't
feel
fallen
good.
off?
No, my arm hasn't fallen off, and I've had no side effects. Just it's fine. I hardly even felt the needle go in, but I feel good.
Do you mind if I ask where you were able to get it? Where did you go? Because you're out of Monmouth County.
Yeah, I got it at the VNA of Community Health Center in Red Bank is hosting them in cooperation with the YMCA. And I signed up. It's the first time in life. I'm proud of being overweight and having and having comorbidities, so that I qualified.
It's finally working out for you, Art.
Finally paid off for after all these years. Now I can get serious about losing the weight.
Yeah, now that you got the benefit, you got the vaccine. Do you know which one it was? Was it the Pfizer or was it
the Moderna 19?
Moderna? Okay, that seems to be the one that everyone I know in New Jersey that's been vaccinated.
Yeah, I think that's the only one that's been distributed to New Jersey.
Yeah, admittedly, I don't know. I don't know whether or not we have Pfizer or if we do, where it is.
I think it's in Florida.
Okay.
All right. We've got a little crew here.
We've got 34 people so far.
Yeah.
I'll put it in the groups.
We'll send it into the groups, and while we're sending it off into the far reaches of the internet, good evening, everyone. It's Matt Rooney, founder and editor-in-chief of SaveJersey.com, and we're continuing. We haven't really come up with a name for this, this informal Wednesday night chat that we're doing every week. We'll come up with something catchy eventually, but for now, it's just our Wednesday night Facebook Live. And I have with us, who was just talking a moment ago, the great Art Gallagher.
Thank you. That's very generous of you.
The great. He's newly vaccinated, which is great. Founder of More Monmouth Musings, one of New Jersey's better political blogs, and also an ace political consultant. And then the other gentleman with us tonight, for those of you that have been following along, you will note is most certainly not Dan Cerrucci. Although he knows Dan Cerrucci very well, having spent a lot of years down in South Jersey before he made his triumphant return to the Jersey Shore. My friend of many years, Jeff Booker, who has worn many hats over the years. Maybe we'll make him talk a little bit about himself. But most recently, he is a newly minted councilman, Republican councilman in Seabright, New Jersey, one of our favorite beach hamlets. Jeff, I think that among other distinctions, you're the first African-American ever elected in Seabright to town council.
A minor correction, but first African-American male.
First African-American male. Okay. Well, it will not be the first minor correction of the evening, as Art knows. I will be corrected many times, but an historic win nonetheless. So our friend Dan Cerrucci couldn't be here tonight.
If I could just add to that, Matt, because it's a bigger deal than Seabright, where there was an African-American mayor for many, many years. And I didn't know she was African-American, but it was before I lived there. But Jeff is actually the first African-American Republican elected official in Monmouth County since Assemblyman Tom Smith who lived in Asbury Park, who was in office for a long time, actually died in office in the 90s. Sean Kane took his seat. So we had a long drought, and I think whenever I saw you at events, I kept saying, "Move to Monmouth County, Jeff." And I wanted you to run for U.S. Senate this year against Cory Booker, but then I told you that for years and years, and you just shook your head at me. But you were smarter in picking office that you could win. I still hope you run against Cory Booker in 6 years. But that's the cynical political consultant in me getting some crossover votes with, you'll have instant name recognition.
Well, I suppose that I would, Art, but I think I'm pretty good here in Seabright as I look to serve my local constituency. So I appreciate a vote of confidence for higher office, but I think my hands are full where I am now. So thank you.
Well, yeah, but 6 years is a long time.
Art will wear you down. He has that effect on people.
I appreciate your efforts, Art, but
I've been working on you. I finally got you to come to Monmouth County.
I suppose that
took
true.
About 10 years.
Yeah, at least, yes. So yep. So I'm here and enjoying it. Enjoying having a chance to meet lots of my neighbors and folks in town, and the mayor and our municipal chair and many others, our council president, have all been very supportive of my efforts here in town. And we ran a good campaign and were able to be successful. So I'm proud of that, but I know it takes a team effort, and certainly don't want to take all the credit, for sure.
So there's going to be some, and you can tell that one of Jeff's traits is he's humble, because as Art pointed out, he's accomplishing a lot more than he's ever going to give himself credit for. So we want to ask some Jeff specific questions tonight while we have you. But elephant in the room, there was a little event down today in Washington, D.C. that I think that we should touch on. And if you tuned in from the beginning a few minutes ago, I was starting to ask whether we actually watched it. Art said he didn't watch it live. Jeff, I missed your answer. Did you watch any of today live?
I did. I was working today, as I do almost every day, and today was one of those days. Despite the historic nature of what happened in D.C. and I certainly did watch the oaths, and I watched some of the music and etc. And I think it's important, and I think I have some standing to say this. I think it's important to recognize the glass ceiling that was broken for women and for people of color. That's a real thing, and I can tell you that I sat and watched former President Barack Obama when he was sworn in back in 2009. And I remember understanding that I have policy differences with the former president and did at that time as well. but there was a moment of pride as an African American male to be able to see that someone who looks like me and has some similar background to me for the first time was able to assume that office. That is important and it's meaningful. And it's difficult to sort of grasp that for some folks because they're so focused on the policy differences, which are real and meaningful and important. And debate and dissent and discussion is meaningful and important. But I was able to appreciate the moment and then pivot to talking about policy. Similar today, it was meaningful that a woman of color, a woman of color was able to ascend to the number 2 chair. That's meaningful. It does matter. And it does show young ladies all over the country and the world that you can achieve certain things. I have my policy disagreements with Kamala Harris, as I imagine you guys do, and that's okay, and that's important, and that's meaningful too. But for the moment, I think it was important to recognize that.
You know, it's interesting to hear you say that, Jeff, because you're right. Understatement of the century. This group that's on this Zoom tonight has some major policy issues with Kamala Harris that we'll be talking about maybe a little bit tonight and in the weeks and months to come. I always think part of my problem with this scenario that you've posed is being a younger Republican. I'm classifying myself as a younger Republican because I still technically qualify as a millennial, even though I'm starting to get gray hair and some extra growth around my waistline.
Welcome to the club, sir. It's great.
Yeah, I mean, I'm leaning into it. I'm leaning
Yes.
fully into it, especially now that I got a kid. But you know, I never really growing up ever doubted that one day I would vote for a Black president or a Hispanic president or an Asian president. It's just never something that being under the age of 40, I ever really second guessed. So I think for some young conservatives, maybe part of our problem talking about it is maybe it's not that we're diminishing the accomplishment, but maybe we don't always appreciate or fully cognizant of how high of a bar it is that's been cleared. Does that make any sense?
It does, and because I know you and I know who you are, you know, I know the vantage point or position from which that question is coming from. So and I appreciate that. But I think you're describing it correctly. That it very well may be that you may not be able to have the same perspective because you've come up in a different time. I'm only about a decade older than you, but even that decade is meaningful. I mean, because I saw things, heard things, etc. You may not have seen or heard in the same way, and that's okay too. I think part of the problem that we have sometimes is that we are so tethered to our party or to our candidates or to our position or whatever have you, that we have a hard time seeing other individuals' perspectives. And just because your perspective was different than mine doesn't make your perspective better or worse than mine. It makes it different, and that's fine. And I think too often we run the risk of sowing seeds of division by being overly partisan to the point where it's about labels and about checklists than about humanity and about people. So I have many friends on the other side of the aisle. They tease me all the time, and that's fine. But they know. Well, yeah, they know who I am, and they respect me because I know who I am, and I don't fake anything. So and I'll call things out when I see them, regardless of where they come from. So I think I've earned some chops on all sides for that.
I would just say, Jeff, I want to thank you for emphasizing how important that is. Because I don't think there's enough of a dialogue for people appreciating it. And as someone who's, I'm 62, so I'm older than a lot of you, and just want to also acknowledge quickly another glass ceiling the oldest president ever to get sworn in. Kind of gives old guys like me hope. But
you never know, Art.
But
You
it's,
never know.
but it's
not over yet. So.
It's not nearly the big deal that Obama's presidency was, or that Kamala Harris's vice presidency is today for women and for people of color. And I don't know if I'm unusual or not. I'm certainly not unusual for my family and my upbringing, but for me until sometime in the last few years, I didn't get what a big deal it is. And I remember in 2008, I was still in the vehicle leasing business, and I was had a very good customer in Irvington, just outside of Newark. It was a big, fairly big for the area school bus company, and the owner of the company was a very conservative black man, and the name of his company included BP, which stood for black people. So that was a big deal to him. But he was a conservative, and he didn't like high taxes. And he and I would sit, and he would be complaining about the government, and he'd be complaining about he'd be complaining about what Corzine was doing, what the education department was doing. And I said, well, I guess you're voting for McCain. And he just laughed at me. He just laughed me out of the office. He says, no, I'm voting for Barack Obama. And none of the policy mattered to him. It was that a black man was finally doing it. And that was, and he was older than me. I don't know if he's even still alive. He was substantially older than me. But it was a big deal for him. And like you said, Jeff, you've had experiences and perspectives that I never had. And Matt probably never had. And you probably know Matt better than you know me. But that conversation, and I, at the time, I scratched my head and said, well, he's going to pay more taxes, and his business is going to be more regulated. But he didn't care. He wanted to and from the point of view of white people, it's like, well, yeah, we don't care. We want, we don't want these. At the time, so many white people voted for Obama because of what he represented, and just because they were fed up with 8 years of Bush and how bad the economy was crashing, and it's like, and that's not better. That's just different. I think a lot of people, white people, the white privilege is this big conversation now, and I really think there's more white ignorance than white privilege, because you say white privilege, and a lot of people, a lot of white working class people saying, I'm living paycheck to paycheck. Where's my privilege? But there's a lot of ignorance which comes from lack of dialogue.
That again, Art, is the point that I'm endeavoring to make, which is too often we retreat behind slogans and memes and things like that, and we don't have the dialogue we need to have.
Right.
The country is in trouble right now, and we, having come through the last year, has been a real meat grinder for all of us. And from the pandemic to social unrest, to what COVID has done is exposed the underbelly and some of the inequities that do exist. And I think one of the challenges for my fellow conservatives, who may be a little bit lighter skinned than me, is that too often there is a knee-jerk reaction to discount the experiences of someone like myself or those who look like me. That is different, as you said, Art, and that's not your fault. It's not Matt's fault. This goes back a long way. So there's no need for you or for Matt to sort of have this white guilt of, well, I'm so sorry, and what can I do? I don't need your pity or your sympathy, and I respect you both. But I think what is helpful is to recognize, just because your experience was different than mine, and I use this generically, does not mean that my experience or others' experience isn't true, didn't happen, isn't meaningful, etc. So we one of the things that Dr. King said a number of years ago was that we often hear the adage, and I heard it, growing up, and obviously Dr. King in that era, it was talked about as well, that you just have to work hard and you got to pull yourself up by your bootstraps. And what Dr. King said was, it's unusually cruel to say to a man, well, just pull yourself up by your bootstraps if he has no boots. So that's a real, there has to be a dialogue and an understanding that folks are sometimes starting at different levels in life, and there are hurdles to clear for some that aren't there for others. That's not casting blame. It's not making an excuse. It's the reality of what experiences have been. So I think that's helpful to understand that.
Yeah, and I really like the point that both of you made here, because I think that's what I hate so much about the term white privilege, because what white privilege does is it ends a conversation. It says there's something immutable about you that makes it such that you can never relate to someone else's experience. Therefore, you need to shut up and just swallow a certain ideological viewpoint that is being pushed by the person who's labeling you as such. So, the better way to put it is, I think what you said, Jeff, we need to acknowledge that as human beings, we're all a little ignorant in different ways about different things. And Republicans, certainly, chiefly among everyone right now, need to learn how to listen better, and also how to dialogue and ask better questions, particularly when it comes to growing your tent, which we clearly need to do, because when you lose an election, what that fundamentally means is we can debate about how to get to 50+1, but what it fundamentally means is that you have a math problem. You didn't get 50+1, so how do you add more people? This is what I really want to get your thoughts on, Jeff, and this was a great launching off point, because and we talked a little bit about this last week with Art and Dan, how for all the things that went wrong in 2020, you saw kind of the nucleus, the beginning building blocks of a new coalition for the GOP coming out of Donald Trump's loss. Even though he did much worse in the suburbs than he did 2016. Like, I was actually looking the other day as an aside, Donald Trump only won Hunterdon and County by 4 points this time around. He won it by almost 14 last time. Just think about that for a second. That's dramatic. It's Hunterdon and County.
And it wasn't just Hunterdon. It was across, and even in our state, in other parts of the country, it was in places, Morris, Monmouth, places that used to be double-digit 12, 15-point wins for the Republican nominee for president. With Donald Trump, that was gone. And there has to be an acknowledgement of that. Many of my friends who are Trump fans need to untether themselves from the desire to feel right, or to feel that Trump got a raw deal and Trump's the best thing since sliced bread. A substantial majority of your neighbors in your community, around your state, etc., disagreed with you vehemently. So to your point, Matt, the Republican Party in New Jersey has a math problem. It just is. It's math. It's not emotional. It's math. So how do you get from sort of starting out on election day down 1 million votes? I mean, it is what it is.
But the way I look at it is, two things can be true at the same time, right? It could be true that Donald Trump couldn't solve the math problem, or at least he couldn't complete the math problem between 2016 and 2020. But there were aspects of it that he improved upon. And where I was starting to go with this whole thing is he did modestly but significantly better with certain non-traditionally Republican groups. He did better with Hispanic voters. He did better with Black male voters. He actually did extremely well in certain immigrant communities, which really makes the left's head exposed. So, Jeff, I mean, as a Black male Republican, yes, obviously there's some things that Donald Trump did wrong this time around. I mean, did he do some things right? Is there something to be learned?
Well, I think that one of the challenges that the former president had is that, he made everything kind of about him. And I just think that was a fatal flaw, because like all of us, we're all flawed, right? So original sin, all that good stuff, from catechism and all that from our youth. We're all flawed. So if you make it all about you, whoever you are, your flaws will continually bubble to the surface. And I think whether it was his style, his mannerisms, his language, his tone, etc. That bull in the china shop got some things done, but it hurt him in other areas, and it got to the point where it didn't matter what he was saying, or doing, or his administration was doing that may have been positive, such as opportunity zones, HBCU resources, highest level ever. Those are very real and meaningful things, which you barely heard about it because, there was a lack of discipline to stay on message, focus on what's really, really important here. And it was too chaotic. So again, but he was kind of a chaotic personality. So, all of those things sort of coming together drowned out a lot of what were real policy things that happened that were working. Case in point, such as the lowest recorded unemployment rate among African Americans. That's not nothing. That's a thing. But we rarely hear about that because so much of the rest of him, his personality, his persona, his energy just took us every other which way. So that just was what it was. So
I think that's a good way to put it, because on the one hand, his bravado and his style is what allowed him to initially break through that media firewall, but then it didn't allow him to develop the discipline that he needed, the message discipline, to be able to capitalize on those gains and talk about some of his accomplishments.
Well, and that, again, that is unfortunate. Like I said, we're all flawed, and I'm not, trying to dump on the president. The former president.
We should be safe for some people. I've known you for a while. You're a pretty conservative Republican.
I am, and most people know that. But it's unfortunate because there were too many sort of follow the bouncing ball stuff going on, and in the end. That among many other things really hurt the president, but I know
it really hurt the country.
By extension, the president leads the country.
And you're onto something here, and it's with Trump's record, and from peace in the Middle East to no new wars to the record-breaking economy, and then the minority record that you talked about, lowest African American unemployment ever. And why he did better historically with minority communities, not just African Americans, was those people in this case might have been paying more attention to the results than the rhetoric and the personality. How many times over the course of the 4 years was there a real accomplishment that he stepped on himself before it could become part of the news cycle with a stupid or controversial tweet? That he was his own worst enemy about that, and I think that's part of making it all about himself. It almost with a lot of the real die-hard Trump supporters, it's almost a cult of personality. It's not a political.
Well, I think that leads to something else, Art, which is there is a segment of folks who are huge fans of the president that are sort of tethered to a person or a personality, in this case Trump, than they are to a set of principles or to a set of political ideology. They're Trumplicans, if you will, and there's a difference. This is New Jersey, and our state is different. This is not Alabama. What would fly in Alabama or Mississippi politically doesn't fly here. Again, it's that math problem, right? If you go back and look at those who win statewide office as Republicans in New Jersey, they typically are center right, if even on the right. They're centrist, center right, because that's where our state is as far as you can make the case the state is center left on a lot of issues, especially with respect to federal elections. So Governors Kane, Whitman, Christie, many conservatives, take shots at those folks all day long. But what is the common denominator of those folks? They won, and they won again. So conservatives can throw darts at them all day long, but their record speaks for itself electorally. They won, and they won again. So I think part of what our party needs to understand going forward is that we need to expand the tent. We keep hearing about that. But the way that you do that is you talk to people like they're real people, and you address issues that are important to them, and not just come election time. If we want to reach more African Americans and others, we have to be more direct with it.
I think you skipped a step there, Jeff, in terms of what we need to do, in terms of expanding the tent. Because we've been talking about expanding the tent since Tom Kean Sr. And we go in and we talk to the people, but what we failed to do is authentically listen. So we got to listen before we talk, because as conservatives, Republicans, we believe, I believe the three of us do here, that our principles will lead to a better quality of life for everybody. But particularly New Jersey Republicans, don't listen except to each other, and they don't even they're really in bubbles, and they run the same campaigns over and over and over again, and they're wondering why they keep losing. But in terms of going into having conversations about school choice in our urban communities should win over some voters, and finding a way to break the machine vote, and a lot of people might just say, well, my so-and-so is my boss, and he said I got to vote this way or lose my job, and they might. But we've got that school choice issue that we can take to the minority communities. We're and we're not going to get the NJEA vote anyway. We got to stop trying to get it. And the school choice, if done right, it would actually be better for teachers than it would be for than the current system.
Oh, there's no doubt about it. But I mean, back to another point for a second. I don't want to divert us too far, but I mean, you triggered me with Christine Todd Whitman, because a lot of the blame for our current circumstances can be laid at the feet, I believe, of those elder Republican statesmen from the 1990s and the 2000s who didn't do what we're talking about. They played it safe. They did not aggressively tackle these third rail issues like school choice, which could have left us in a much better, stronger position today. Christine Todd Whitman was not a courageous messenger for the Republican Party, even before she screwed up the ground zero air quality situation in the pension system. So I agree with you, Jeff. I mean, there's something to be learned from the past, but I think that we also, as part of this general Republican reckoning, have to accept something that's very important, which is that, the things that we don't like about Donald Trump, some of them were symptoms of a long festering problem. And going back to some of the Republican successes in the past really isn't the answer, because some of those successes were really hollow victories, because they didn't teach conservatism. They didn't expand conservatism. They didn't win anybody to our cause.
Well, I agree with what you're saying to a point. They had what you're saying is they had the electoral success, because they did. That's undeniable. But
Chris
when
used to say, and then I'll shut
when they
up.
were there,
Chris used to say, you win the battle, then you win the argument. I've always thought that was a fatal flaw of Republican thinking, because when you win the battle without winning the argument, you're in a position where you don't have a coalition that is giving you a mandate to do anything. At some point, you have to pick an argument, and you have to win it during the election. Well,
no, I don't entirely disagree. And again, this is where matters of public policy and debate and discussion are important inside the party, to the voters, across the aisle when necessary, et cetera. So there isn't enough of that. There isn't enough. And my hope is that our upcoming gubernatorial election will provide us an opportunity to be able to have some of the conversations, and we can agree to disagree, but have the real policy debate and discussion is my hope, is that we'll have a chance to do that, because the state needs it. I mean, the state needs to have these conversations. So hopefully that happens.
I'll tell you what my position is, and it's one that I know is certainly controversial in New Jersey Republican circles. I personally don't think there was much substantively wrong with Trump messaging. I don't agree with President Trump on all issues, but I think on many issues he was spot on with kind of the populist conservative approach. I think the problem was just Trump. Our elections, whether we're talking about high school student council, or whether we're talking about President of the United States, are fundamentally popularity contests, and the guy's personality just didn't gel with 50+1, particularly some of those educated suburban voters that we need to win. I think if you took Donald Trump's message and put it in a prettier vehicle, and when I say prettier vehicle, I don't mean just looks, but that certainly wouldn't have hurt. But if you put it in a prettier vehicle, in a more disciplined mode of delivery, I think he would have been reelected. I really do think it's sometimes that simple, but I think sometimes those of us that are political nerds, we almost overanalyze it. We ascribe it to other things that maybe the general population, or at least persuadable voters, aren't even really looking at.
Well, we always tend to.
It's likability, and people were tired of the chaos. And I know, conservatives, or at least center right moderates, who made more money and whose lives are measurably better than they were 4 years ago, who were repulsed by Trump and who would not vote for him, and were posting today that they were moved to tears by Lady Gaga's rendition of the national anthem. And I'm like, Lady Gaga?
And I know these people, and I have these arguments with them in my backyard. I have these arguments with them at other people's houses, and they don't really fundamentally disagree with us on the big issues of economics, war, most personal civil liberty kind of things. They made a personal choice. They didn't like the guy, and there's just no getting around that. So I think that that's disheartening in some ways, because you wish people could get past that. But I also think it gives you a lot of hope for the future, that maybe if we take some of the good things about his message and allow the right messenger to be the carrier of the banner, we might be able to get there as early as 2022, maybe even 2021 here in New Jersey. We'll find out.
Yeah, I think we're poised to have we're poised to have a good year in 2021.
You agree with that, Jeff? Do you think we're going to have a good year in 2021? I don't know yet. I think if we have this sort of substantive policy debate and we have the right messenger on our side of the aisle, and it looks like it's going to be Jack Ciattarelli, who I think is certainly a capable messenger. He's got a good resume, a good story, a good energy around him, a natural campaigner, et cetera. So I think we've got the right vehicle, perhaps. Whether or not, we collectively can galvanize a message, hold Governor Murphy accountable, because I do agree that the governor has, as Jack I think said today, the governor has kind of gotten a free pass on a lot of stuff, because Trump politically takes all the air out of the room. So, we weren't really looking at what was happening in Trenton because Washington was such a mushroom cloud every other day, or so it seemed. So that is now going away, and now the governor will be able to be judged on his actions in his term, et cetera, as he should be and should want to be, especially as someone running for re-election. You're asking for an extension or a second term. You got to make the case to get that. And I think that's going to be, a challenge if we can keep focused on Jersey issues.
I wasn't saying, Matt, that we're going to have a good year. I said we're poised to have a good year. And I do not underestimate.
Are you the lawyer or am I the lawyer?
You're the lawyer, but I got my degree in the School of Hard Knocks. But and I've paid plenty of lawyers. I don't underestimate the New Jersey Republicans Party's ability to, grab defeat out of the throes of victory, and to shoot themselves in the foot. And you perfect example. You go back to Christine Todd Whitman and Donnie DiFrancesco and the Collins, I think, was the speaker. What a terrible job they did with the opportunity that they had when they took control. But that's water way under the bridge, but that we're still paying for. We haven't paid off the Whitman bonds yet in our pension system. Jeff's right and Jack was right today. Murphy's gotten a free pass, and Murphy is disciplined in his communication and in his personality. It's and he's got a horrible record. But he's likable and funny, and you throw things at the TV. Well, you might, Matt, when he says that the Constitution's over his pay grade, but but he is likable, and likability is the most important thing about a candidate. I tell my candidate clients, if someone knows you, likes you, and trusts you, they're more inclined to vote for you. And
well, and I think that you hit on it, Art, and I think it's even a little bit more than likability in this instance. He is not I'm trying to think of the right way to put it. He doesn't strike anyone as dangerous. He doesn't strike anybody as
be very dangerous, but he doesn't strike people that way.
Yeah, whereas Trump obviously gave some people the willies. Phil Murphy doesn't give that same, or at least doesn't have that same initial impact on someone. Now, of course, bringing us back to our point about Jack Ciattarelli, if Jack Ciattarelli goes out there and forcefully explains, listen, people in New Jersey, we're not going to agree on everything, but this guy, his administration, is responsible for killing 7,500 people and counting in the nursing homes. He's the reason your kid is home, falling behind in a remote school. He's the reason why all of your favorite shops and your friend's store down on Main Street closed in the past year. If he can do that, I think he can break through.
Yeah,
but
it's a difficult challenge too, because people's default position is going to be, well, the virus. That it's and Murphy will say, well, we did the best we could with the virus. It's not going to be an easy win, especially with, as Jeff mentioned, the million voter registration deficit. But it is doable.
He'll blame it on the virus, which is why Jack, or whoever gets the nomination, probably Jack, is going to have to be armed with statistics, because we know that there are plenty of states that are doing a hell of a lot better than we are, that had much more.
And that's going to be the challenge.
At the moment, New Jersey is one of the only states, we're in the minority of states right now, where our level of cases is not going down. Plenty of other states, including Florida. You remember what a pariah Florida was. Threatened among the liberal media. Ron DeSantis. They act like Ron DeSantis was a butcher. Florida's going to be in better shape than we are now in about a month's time. So he's got to be ready. He's got to be prepared to make that argument. Otherwise, I agree. Right? Without that strong contrast, people are going to default to, well, there was this virus and
Right.
bad, and what did you want Phil to do? Are we off the mark here, Jeff, or do you think that there's an aspect of this that we're missing? Because Jeff's one of those guys. For those of you that don't know him, I mean, at some point, if they haven't already, the Chitterelli people are going to sit him down and they're going to ask his opinion on this stuff.
Well, I would welcome a conversation with Jack as our presumptive at this point nominee. He's a good guy. I've always liked him, and happy. He and I have chatted before, and happy to chat with him again. But we just need to we have to expand our party's appeal, and the way you do that in part is expanding, in this case, our nominee's appeal. I think people, if they meet Jack, will like him, and I think Jack can go anywhere in the state and pick up support. So that's significant, and he has sort of that guy you want to have a beer with, sort of effect. He's a natural campaigner. So I think that's helpful, and happy to have a conversation with him as I have before. And hopefully we can have him be successful.
If he asked you, Jeff, straight up, Jeff, how do I go into, Atlantic City? How do I go into Vineland? How do I go into Trenton? How do I go into Newark and start to break in to the Black vote in this state and speak to African-American communities, speak to communities of color, and get them to give me a chance? Obviously, you're not going to reinvent the wheel and get 70% of the Black vote in one election. But if he asked you how to break in this year in New Jersey, what would you tell him to talk about?
Well, Art mentioned some things earlier. Giving some parents the opportunity to, make some choices about schools and where they send their kids. That's a very worthy conversation. I think that as it pertains to economics, looking to expand economic opportunity and helping to create an environment where more jobs can be created. I always hear this notion, and politicians of all stripes say it. They say things like, well, I created X amount of jobs, or no, you didn't. You didn't.
Thank you.
What you did, perhaps, is help create an environment where the economy was such where those jobs could be created, but you didn't create anything. The government's job is to create an environment where those things can occur. Now, that's not to say that there aren't situations where the government plays a role in a number of things from time to time. I'm not saying government is evil, and I'm not saying that. What I'm saying is that government should create an environment where these things can occur, and when there are inequities or when there are real impediments that are keeping these things from happening, that is where government can help level the playing field, and create an environment where all can rise. So that's the message I would bring. If Jack's listening, that's what I would say, Jack. So.
And it dovetails with that famous Reagan expression, right? What are the 9 most terrifying words? I'm from the government and I'm here to help.
Right.
Government can create the conditions, as you said, for success, or it can set us all up for failure. And I think everything you said is on point, Jeff. And I also think that Jack or whoever else or the local candidates, they need to talk about the fact that for all Governor Murphy's BS about stronger and fairer and how we're going to take advantage of COVID-19 to level the playing field, I was looking at some data the other day, and we shared it on Save Jersey. Some of these big blue counties, some of our most diverse counties in New Jersey, have the worst vaccination rates in terms of percentage of the population. So
no, there's a lot of opportunity there, and
huge.
And
the people
that
Phil Murphy's telling us he's trying to help, he's actually doing nothing for as he sits in his mansion in Monmouth County. Neither Jeff or our other Monmouth County guys here tonight have mansions, but Phil Murphy does. So it's something that he's got to wade into.
Yeah, no, I mean,
So
that's
another
some of the
thing
ground that Jack's got to
Jack
cover.
could do, um, to get some votes in the inner cities is, in addition, he's already started pointing out all the mistakes that Murphy's made in his incompetencies. But how about we just expunge all marijuana convictions? And we, and anybody who's still in jail, we just get rid of them. And it's legal now. The people voted. And he's dragging his feet on stuff like that, and he can't even get his.
Well, part of that is the legislature, the Democrats. Yeah, I mean that's I mean it's there are a number of folks who can't seem to figure that out. So and none of them have R's next to their name. None of them. So that's something that their party needs to figure out.
That's a fundamental difference between Democrats and Republicans is, a Republican is going to look to see, and this is the same thing in distribution of vaccines, where, what's our existing infrastructure and how can we, allow the market to take care of it. Now we have this new product that's already very popular and it's very easy to get in the free black market, different kind of black market, but the free illegal market in marijuana. It's a booming economy in New Jersey already, has been for years, and now they're trying to create a infrastructure that they can control. Sell licenses to it to convenience stores like cigarettes or liquor stores. We've already got an infrastructure. You don't have to reinvent the wheel. Yeah, but they're not going to get the money.
They think that's how they sold it.
They can't agree amongst themselves. They'll get more money, but how much money they make on cigarette taxes, which are then bond and wasted all 1 year. They'll
they don't understand basic economics, right? And let's just be honest.
They understand they can control. They got the power. They can set the rules, and
they're like junkies. They really are. They're addicted to our money. So if you wave an easy, quick hit, to continue our drug analogy here, in front of a junkie, they're going to go for it instead of thinking it out. And you're 100% right. If we would just let the free market do what the free market does, not only would it be better for everybody, but the state would actually make more revenue in the long run.
Well, and to sort of piggyback on that, part of the debate that is happening with Democrats in the legislature and the governor's office, because there are a lot of very well-heeled interests that want to make sure that they get their piece of the pie, but folks like Ron Rice, Senator Ron Rice, which again, regardless of what you think about his politics, whatever the case may be, I think one of the most telling moments that I saw here recently was when Senator Scutari got in a dust up with Ron Rice with respect to this issue, and sort of called out his commitment to, or his existence of public service. When we're going to that level, that means that there are very powerful interests involved here that want to make sure that they get what they want as far as a piece of the pie. And I have no problem saying that. It's Ron Rice is an American hero. He's a Marine who has served his country and should be respected. And so again, there are issues there as far as getting that across the governor's desk. But my hope is that we will get to that point where now we're talking about expungement and all of these things. But again, there's one party that kind of has got to get that together, and it's not the ours. So we'll see where it goes.
No, but that's
one of those rare areas where Jack's fix it. Let's fix it. That's a slogan. I know a lot of people that read Save Jersey and probably your website, Art, have strong opinions about whether it's a good slogan or not. This is one area where it might really apply, because Trenton is broken. And the Trenton Democrats are now having the same problem that Joe Biden may soon experience, which is that having every elected branch under the control of your party can be a curse as much as a blessing. I mean, this should be easy to get through the legislature, and they can't do it. Steve Sweeney and the Speaker of the Assembly and Phil Murphy just can't get together and get this legislation accomplished. That at this point, virtually everyone, even though we may disagree on the nuances, supports getting this done, or at least getting this over with. So, I mean, I think, Jack, you make a mistake when you focus too much on government dysfunction as a campaign platform, because, the public doesn't have a lot of confidence in either party's ability.
You got to bring it down to their level.
Yeah.
I'll get your unemployment check to you on time.
Yes.
I'll get your driver's license renewed on time.
Yeah, it won't take 6 months for you to get your registration renewal in the mail.
Yeah, you won't have to sleep overnight. You won't have to, with your kids to get their first driver's test. I'll come up with a safe way for your kid to have a high school graduation.
Yeah.
And I won't send people with a deadly virus into your grandmother's nursing home.
That's easy for people to understand.
I know the Jack people are grappling with this a little bit, because he's heard the message that let's fix it isn't resonating. But I understand what he wants to do, but he's not. We haven't yet come up with a slogan, and we live in a slogan age where it matters. And Christie was going to turn Trenton upside down, and that we were, that was when the beginning of the angry populist movement, and people could really be angry with Trenton and John Corzine, who was going to sell our beloved highways to the Chinese. But,
how about this? I won't kill your grandma.
There you go. That's, and I'll send your kids to school, and you can pick the school they go to.
Which again, how great of a campaign platform is that? How about this? How about the fact that if your school persists in keeping your kid at home, even though you're paying property taxes, you're allowed to have some of your property taxes back to be able to pay for a parochial school or a private school. I know plenty of families that are having to figure that out right now, because keeping the kid home all day just isn't an option.
And if we want universal school choice, and every child gets a voucher for whether it's 15, 20, whatever the right number is, go spend it at whatever school, take your kid.
And that's a message that appeals to some of those folks, kind of bringing our conversation tonight full circle, that appeals to some of those folks in the suburbs who don't really fundamentally disagree with this, at least on a lot of the economic stuff, but they have Biden some on their lawn this year. In most cases, because Orange Man bad. They had a touch of TDS, or in some cases, an extreme case of TDS. But this is a way to kind of begin to break back in without compromising who we are as conservatives.
Well, I think that, Matt, I guess my sort of as I look forward, and people have asked me kind of what I think and what the party should do, and et cetera. And they're in order to expand the tent, you've got to find those issues where there is widespread agreement on an issue that conservatives or Republicans, sort of believe and understand, but a large segment of the population does as well. So that really is the key: making it about economics, making it about creating a level playing field. And here's the thing: that does not mean that we take from someone else to make it equal for someone else. It isn't equality of outcomes. It's equality of opportunity. And where there are inequities, and there are in places, there certainly are, what is the role government should play in helping the student in the inner city, or the student in suburbia, or the student in a rural area have an equal shot to be able to be successful. That is the government's job, and that's the government's role. Not to pick winners and losers, but to lift up. We're lifting up as necessary, because the foundation some of these kids are standing on is crumbling. So the government has a responsibility to address that as well, but not necessarily by pulling and shortchanging someone else someplace else. So I'm not saying it's easy, but that's really what we have to work on, and the direction we have to take, because it's worth the conversation. you can't have a situation where suburbia is feeling like they're getting fleeced to support our urban centers. We're on it together, right? So what are the ways to balance those priorities? So it's not an easy fix. It isn't a wave the magic wand. We've got decades and generations of things that have sort of set in, and we've got to find a way to sort of undo some of those things so that the state works for everybody. So not easy. It was done already. So it's not easy, but we have to be committed to that effort. So.
Yeah, I mean, I think
New Jersey work for everybody is a better slogan than let's fix it.
I think
I don't know.
Another possible slogan is it's not going to be easy, right? That's kind of the theme of tonight. I mean, we definitely have some problems, but I think that conversations like this are great. I've enjoyed having it every Wednesday, and Jeff, you've certainly added something to the conversation this evening. I think, and I know this about Jeff. Jeff's the kind of guy where if you're thinking about running for office in New Jersey and you're curious about the topics we're talking about tonight, reach out to him. Because I think so often, and it sounds like a crazy thing to say, but so many Republicans are just terrified of these issues and they don't know where to start. And particularly when it comes to outreach to groups that haven't voted Republican traditionally, or at least not in a long time. But we got to figure it out. And I think we talked.
I think Matt, both
conversation going tonight.
I think Matt, both you and I should put Jeff on the short list, our short list for lieutenant governor.
Oh, yeah.
Hey, listen, Jeff, you're not going to say anything right now, even though you outrank us because you're an elected official. Yes, Jeff would be fantastic, but I do think Jack Chitterelli, if you're listening, someone who is not only going to be able to deliver the Republican message to places that aren't listening to Republican messages right now, but also, even though you're brand new, Jeff, you've been involved in local politics for a long time. Someone that understands how Phil Murphy's nonsense is affecting average people in local communities, local government, local school districts. These are not abstract problems. Phil Murphy's policies, Trenton's dysfunction is hurting people. We need somebody with that perspective. So it would not be a terrible idea. That's my long-winded.
Well, Matt, I know you have a long time, and you've had lots of crazy ideas, and this is one of them. So I appreciate that. But there are a number of folks who would do a great job in that role. Happy to support Jack, but I'm very happy being a good councilman in Seabright. That's what I want to do.
That's the right answer. You're definitely going to go on my short list when I write it.
Yeah, okay. And Art's also a purveyor of crazy ideas, and people actually read his stuff. So whether you like it or not, Jeff, we're probably going to make it so that some people end up lighting up your phone. You're just going to have to deal with it. I don't know what to tell you, old friend. We have been talking to Jeff Booker this week. I've had a heck of a time, as always. I'm really enjoying doing this Wednesday conversation. It was born of COVID because it's getting harder for us to all get together. But I mean, it creates this opportunity to be able to get the three of us together when, because of time commitments and geography, it would otherwise be a little bit daunting. So I hope, Jeff, that throughout 2021, if Art and I and Dan can keep this up, you'll come back and lend us some perspective and maybe update us on how you think things are going.
Well, that's fine. Always happy to chat. And like I said before, more conversation is always good. The state needs a political balance to it. That's important. So our party has work to do. And, I'm in it for the long haul.
It does. And you're going to be part of the solution. And Art and I are going to try to write about it. Art, my friend, another great conversation.
Thank you, Matt, for making this happen.
You loved it when I told you I asked him. Another one of my crazy ideas panning out. And we'll do it again next week. We'll have Dan back. I know he was disappointed he couldn't be here tonight. And maybe we'll get another guest for next week. I don't know if we're going to be able to top Mr. Booker, but we'll find somebody.
I'm sure you'll be fine.
I'm sure we could get Jack if he's available. He's not running around the state doing something. I don't think that guy has a free moment when he's not sleeping, that he's not at some kind of barbecue or chili.
Yeah, but the beauty of this format is you can do it from anywhere.
Yeah, maybe we'll see if Jack wants to come on. I mean, next week or one of the coming weeks.
Oh,
we should definitely start getting some 2021 candidates on Art.
Maybe we could get George Gilmore.
the newly like, I guess he was technically a free man because he was out of jail pending appeal, but now he's pardoned, fully pardoned.
He's pardoned. It's all washed away.
There were a few high-profile New Jersey pardons. One I did not like, even though he's technically a South Floridian. Bob Menendez's buddy, Salman Melgen, was his head sentence commuted. I was not too thrilled about that. I don't know how you felt about that, Art.
I don't know if he still has to give back any of the $73 million.
I was trying to find something on that earlier. I hope to God not, but if you don't deserve to finish your jail sentence for defrauding the taxpayers by blinding old people, then I don't know. What else can I say about it? Everybody's going to agree on this one. Not good, but maybe we should just talk about the pardons sometimes. That could be a show.
That's going to be a long show.
It could be a long show. And for what it's worth, every presidential tenure pardons that raised eyebrows. So it's certainly nothing new to the Trump administration. The media is going to act like it is, but it's not. But I had a great time this evening, gentlemen.
Thank you, Matt. Thank you, Jeff.
Let's do it again soon. Thanks for joining in. And for those of you that watched tonight, hope you enjoyed it. Art and Dan and I are going to continue to try to do this on a weekly basis whenever we can throughout 2021, or at least until we scream mercy or you cry mercy, because there's just so darn much in New Jersey that's going on that needs a proper vetting. So tune in next week. We're going to try to get a little bit more of a regularized schedule go, but I would say between 8 and 9 o'clock next Wednesday. Again, Art and Dan and I will talk and we'll announce it. And maybe we'll have Jack Chitterelli. I'm putting a lot of pressure on them right now, by the way.
Or George Gilmore. I like the idea of having George Gilmore while he's still news.
Do you think George Gilmore wants to talk about his pardon?
He probably wants to talk about, who knows what he wants to talk about.
He wants to talk about his probable reconquest of Ocean County, right? Ocean County is going to be a hot mess now.
Let's talk about it. I mean, that's an important county.
Yeah, let's see if we can make that happen, Art. Let's talk about that offline. That would be a hell of a time.
Yeah, if he says he'll do it, as long as I'm not part of it, that'll be okay with me. Jeff can come and ask him questions. And
why are you throwing Jeff to the Lions then?
No, thank you.
Idea, good God. All right, everybody, have a great evening. Stay sane. And look, as a parting note, we're all obviously upset today. Right, because the inauguration is not, the event that maybe some of us hoped it would be. But I hope, if nothing else, our conversation tonight reminded you that every loss is an opportunity, and there's a chance for something stronger and better to come out of the complete disaster that has been the Republican Party in recent weeks and months. So let's continue the conversation and see where it goes. And until then, stay sane, please.
I just want to say one thing. It's not that bad. What it was, we picked up seats in the House. We still have half the Senate. And, what I liked about what Biden said today is we need unity. So, I want to just counterbalance that a little bit and say, I'm hopeful. And like President Trump said in his departing message, I hope the new administration is successful and that they have a strong foundation on which they can be.
Well, and I'll add this, Art, because I'm in a charitable mood. The best thing I can say about it is I hope that the Biden administration is successful in helping this country. But one way it's going to have to change if it's going to be successful is that Democrats like Joe Biden need to take ownership of all of their divisiveness. over the course of
Agreed. And hopefully he lives up to what he said today.
continuing of our theme tonight. We're talking a lot about race and politics and how the Republican Party can improve. I mean, it was Joe Biden in 2012 that told an African-American audience that Republicans wanted to put them back in chains. So, you know, if you're listening to this, watching this, and you don't like everything you've ever heard come out of Donald Trump's mouth, this has been a long, sad history of our rhetoric getting dumber and dumber and dumber, and Joe Biden played a part of it. So, yeah, let's hope that maybe, like sometimes happens when someone takes on a big role, Joe Biden is inspired to be a better Joe Biden. I'm not holding my breath. I'm not going to lose any sleep wishing and dreaming for it, but I guess it's always possible. We'll be optimistic.
Be better for our country if he does.
It would be better for, that's something we can all agree on. It'd be better for our country if
it's better for our country, it's better for the world.
Definitely.
Agreed.
We're not children like some of the folks on the other side of the aisle where we're gonna.
No, we have children on our side of the aisle.
Well, we do have children, but you know, their children are also the ones that were on MSNBC and CNN and making up all sorts of fantasies about Russian collusion. We're not sitting here tonight screaming, "Not my president."
No, you're giving those people on MSNBC far too much credit for actually making that up. Someone else wrote those talking points.
That's true.
That'll be another night.
I can't describe the originality to them.
Leave on a down note about the inauguration. This is an important day, and it's a positive day for our country. You know, that our institutions survived, and they survived what happened on January 6th. You know, and
I don't disagree with you. It's just that I never thought there was any doubt our institutions would prevail. I mean, our country's made it through a civil war. We made it through the 1960s. We made it through a long summer and season of riots across the country.
That's something to celebrate, not to take for granted. Because
I think Matt, what I would add is the fact that what we saw on January 6th was frightening on a number of levels. We've never seen it before. So I know when I watched and saw sort of what was happening there, you know, it took me back. I was literally taken aback and then like, wow, this is happening. You know, so that because that doesn't happen here, quote unquote, right? But it did. So that, you know, and in conjunction with last year and all the riots and the federal courthouse being attacked, and I mean, these are all horrible things. But when it was the U.S. Capitol, that created that sort of seared an image for people that something was very, very wrong. So hopefully the temperature comes down and we can go forward.
Right.
No, I agree with you. I don't want to minimize the event. I also don't want to downplay the importance of imagery and symbolism. So even though in terms of raw dollars and the human toll, we've had more damaging riots and domestic terrorism in our very recent history, you're right. I mean, the image of a bunch of guys dressed up like Viking cosplayers storming through the Capitol, carrying Nancy Pelosi's podium. I'm not laughing because it's funny. I'm laughing because if you didn't laugh, you'd cry.
Yeah, it's pretty striking.
It's altogether different, but you know, fundamentally, I mean, this is where I'm an optimist. I mean, I went for a walk this weekend with my family, and you know, I live in Camden County. I don't live in the middle of nowhere where it's a homogeneous, everybody agrees with what I think kind of place, and people are still smiling at each other. I didn't see any militias forming. I didn't see people raising battle standards on their homes. If anything, I saw less political signs this week than I've seen in recent weeks. So I still think your average person wants America to be the kind of place where we can talk about these things without getting silly and stupid. It's just constantly social media and everything that's else going on with the rhetoric or politicians spew sometimes. It's empowering that minority to get even sillier and even stupider and even more dangerous in some circumstances than they ever have before. So, you know, what can we say we haven't said already? Let's just hope that our side gets smarter and better, and we hope that the other side gets much more responsible. it takes two to tango, and if we're going to have a country that functions as a not banana republic political system, everybody's got to improve.
Agreed.
Agreed.
Thanks, Matt. Jeff,
Thank you, guys. Thank you, Art. Thank you, Jeff. Stay in touch. And as for everybody else, we'll see you on Save Jersey tomorrow, but we'll see you again live on Facebook next week. Well, stay safe.
Thank you.